It's another Raw video from your boy Draft Raw Authentic. Yes, I'm finally here with another one, and like I said, it's a Raw video, so there will be no edits. Anyway, in this vid, I wanted to talk about the value of a draft pick and why I think the value of a draft pick is overrated. Why I think that the value of a draft pick is what's ruining the NFL draft today. After the draft, a lot of times when you see or hear about the review of your team's draft, they always talk about who got the best value. Who's got the best value of player? Most of the time, it's the players that were supposed to be first-round picks that ended up getting drafted in the second or maybe even third. Sometimes the value is the situations where the player was a second-round pick and they got drafted in the second round, but maybe they got drafted lower than what they thought, or just, whatever, right? I want to tell you why it's overrated and why it's ruining the NFL draft. The value of the pick is the dumbest thing I ever heard. Why? Because there's no way of knowing who's going to be a really good player or not. Just because media tells you a certain player is a first-round pick doesn't mean they truly are first-round picks. Doesn't mean they truly are going to be transitional players, franchise players. That doesn't mean that. We've seen plenty of times where guys get drafted a little bit later in the draft than what you thought, and they still end up not really amounting to much. Maybe three examples I'll go through. Manti Te'o back in 2013, he got drafted in the second round. People had him as a first rounder. Now, back then, when the Ravens were on the board, I thought my team would actually draft Manti, not Matt Elam. Even though I thought maybe they actually would draft Matt Elam, let me rephrase that. I just thought when Manti was on the board, we was definitely drafting him. And if we didn't, then we was going to draft Jonathan Cyprien. But I thought that the Ravens definitely would draft Matt Elam. And that's what happened. So when that pick happened, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. The Ravens are a solid team. They should know what they're doing. Matt Elam was one of the biggest busts that the Ravens ever drafted. Terrible pick. Didn't do anything in the league. Now, with that being said, looking back at it, Jonathan Cyprien has been a better player. He hasn't been great, but he's been a better one. And Manti Te'o has been a better player in terms of just what he's done in the league. I know they don't play the same position, but just kind of equaling it up, like who's been a pretty good player in the league, yeah. But here's the thing with Manti. He hasn't been a transitional franchise player. He got drafted by the Chargers in the second round. And not to say that he hasn't amounted to much, but he then moved on and started playing with the Saints this past season, and he did pretty good for the Saints. He hasn't been a terrible player, but he hasn't been great. But at the time, people were saying that it was great value. Now, like I said, I thought he was a good player, and I was wrong about it. I think that I didn't put too much stock in his 40 time, but at the same time, 40 time shouldn't influence who you pick. So maybe that was a problem that I had. But I want to say this. When it comes to the value of a pick, there is no such thing as it just does not exist. Good value just doesn't exist. Another example, two more players I'm going to name. Back in 2009, Brian Orakpo, Michael Orr. Orakpo was supposed to be a top 10 pick. He get drafted 13th overall. That's not that far, but they said Redskins got great value. Brian Orakpo has been pretty darn good, but he hasn't been great, and you wouldn't consider him a Hall of Famer. I think that I haven't looked at his stats. I probably should have done that before I did this video, but I believe he doesn't even have over 60 sacks. Or maybe even, I'll say over 60. Being as though he's been in the league since 2009, he'll be going into his 10th season. If I'm wrong, please call me out on that. I could be wrong, but if you look at the years he's been in the league, he hasn't been transcendental. You know what I mean? He hasn't been that great franchise pass rusher that they point him out to be. The other player being Ravens offensive tackle Michael Orr. He was drafted 23rd overall. And a lot of mock drafts, the lowest point he ever went, I believe, was like 12th. And for whatever reason, he dropped in the draft. Now, maybe teams saw something in him that said that, yeah, they didn't want him. But a lot of media consider that good value when the Ravens picked him. What I mean is, when I say good value doesn't exist, is that if a player's good, a player's good. If a player's bad, a player's bad. He was never really bad, but for him to be said to be a top 10 type of tackle and him get drafted 23rd, which is supposed to be good value, and he doesn't turn out to be anything, then it's just like, well, how was that a good pick? He wasn't technically a bust, but he wasn't what we thought he would be. We thought he would be our next left tackle, a franchise guy. And that's why I don't believe taking a tackle in the first round if you're going to play him at right tackle, because he ended up being a solid right tackle for the Ravens and ended up being a pretty okay left tackle for the Carolina Panthers. But when it came down to it, teams still didn't want the dude because they still saw the non-value that he had as a player. And not that he didn't have any value at all, because experience counts as value, but he wasn't as good as maybe he probably should have been. Value does not exist. It's ruined in the draft. And it's just an overrated statement of, oh, your team got great value when they picked that player. Great value could be explained when you see the Antonio Browns as a 6th-round pick. Le'Veon Bell was a 2nd-round pick and has become the best player, running back in that draft. DeAndre Hopkins, 27th overall, the best receiver in that draft. And he went after a player like Tavon Austin, who has amounted to nothing in the league. So, I'm just saying, let's be real. Now, the draft that I was naming, I named a lot of, the 2013 draft was one of the worst drafts ever. But I remember seeing a remock of that draft. And the one thing I do hate about remocks is that they mock a player to a team that they didn't need at that time. They always mock a player that the team needs, right now. You know what I mean? Like, that's dumb. Why not you mock a better player that they would have chosen at a position of need during that, during that time? I also don't like how remocks keep the same trades that happen. So the Dolphins traded up to the 3rd pick. Don't keep that, because why would they still do that to get a player? Unless you're trying to put a player up there that's like great. You know what I mean? But anyway, I saw the remock, and I saw one that had DeAndre Hopkins as the #1 overall pick. And it's crazy because he is the best player from that draft. But what's crazy about it is that the simple fact is that he was the 27th overall pick. You never know who's going to be good in the league technically, but you should have an understanding if you do sit down and watch tape. You should know. But anyway, even with all that I just said, I have a question for you guys out there, the commenters. And I want to shout out a commenter, Dirty Money 410, who commented on my Who the Ravens Should Take video. Please check that video out. And I just want to say this. With the recent things that's happened with the Dez Bryant situation, the Ravens haven't picked him up anything. But if they do, I think the best move is actually to trade down. I heard you say take Calvin Ridley. I wouldn't be mad at that neither. And like you said, if they take Dez Bryant, then they should do something else. But trade down is the best option. But anyway, getting back to this question for the commenters out there. And if you comment on my video, I will shout you out. If I don't answer you in the comment, I will answer you, on my videos. And I just want to say this, whether positive, negative, good or bad, I will try to shout out some of the people that comment, because it shows that you have invested a little bit in me, and it makes me proud to say, hey, I've been trying to build something and I see people are invested in looking. But the question is that if you are a GM and let's say you go back in the future, you see something in the future which says, I'm going to just put a random name out there. Kalen Jameson. Kalen Jameson is going to be was inducted into the Hall of Fame. A guy that was a former 5th round pick is inducted into the Hall of Fame. Let's say you're a GM and you see that and you come back into the past and Kalen Jameson is in the draft that you're about to go through into the draft, right? The question I have, knowing that, would you draft Kalen Jameson in that 1st round with that 1st pick, knowing he's going to be a Hall of Famer? Or would you try to wait it out and say, well, let me try to draft him a little bit later? Now, it doesn't matter what happens. He's still going to be a Hall of Famer regardless. So that's the key to it. But would you still draft him? Would you draft him in that 1st round? Would you draft him with your 1st pick? Or would you try to wait? You don't know what any of the other factors that have came out. If anybody else has seen the future and saw that, you don't know what's going on, but you know this guy is a Hall of Famer. That's a question that gonna make people think about the value of a pick. If you know a player is going to be a Hall of Famer, why not draft him? But that is my question to you commenters out there. Anybody that's subscribed to me watching this video, people that are not subscribed to me watching this video, please comment on the video below. Once again, this is Draft Raw Authentic. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Please comment. Like I said, comment on this video. It's a question for you. Please share this video so other people can see this and other people can join the debate and can comment. And please like that video. Once again, this is Draft Raw Authentic. Thank you and goodbye.